Hi, everybody. This is Abrima from Ghana. I want to show you where we work. This is one of the places we work. This is a factory. It's a factory project that we started with United Nations International Trade Center. We've commemorated the wall, not charity, just work, several years ago, and as an effort to support the training of various communities. Here we put up some of the collection, some of our past collection, and we're working on some really fun things. So right now, for example, you'll see later, but this is our new collection that we presented a few weeks ago in fall. What I love about it is that for the first time, we actually shot the runway show in our factory, which I've actually never seen anybody do. And I have to say, I think it was amazing because you got to see some of the men and women that actually make the clothes. And in fact, we were in the background. We were not speaking. They were speaking about their own story. And something that I always found really fascinating is wondering, what is it that makes people want to stay with us for so long? I know that we're committed to them, but many of them are just equally as committed to us as Studio 189 and our shareholders. We've known their children since they were small. They're now in college. Some of their kids work here now. It's a big family. And I think that it's important to honor that and to let them speak for themselves. So I'm going to take you through the factory. So you can see it's a big old messy factory. These are some of our newest fabrics. We're currently working on a collection. This is a news for us with Bergdorf Goodman, which is huge for me because I grew up in Midtown Manhattan. And Bergdorf Goodman is an incredible shop, but it's also one of these shops in the Upper East Side in Midtown where sometimes people that look like me were not always welcomed and we were followed. I'm not saying always at Bergdorf, but at other stores like that because people thought we would steal because we were Black. So to be in a position now where not only are we able to work with such an incredible boutique that represents high-end luxury, but at the same time, be able to do that in a way where we're offering goods that are made in Africa, that support the supply chain, and that are being represented with honor and grace and beauty is a big deal. All of our fabrics are made by hand. So these are some of our fabrics that we make. Very beautiful, very lovely. And then here are some of our tailors. This is Lydia. Lydia, say hi, Lydia. Lydia is also working on our Bergdorf Goodman order, and she was the star of our most recent fashion show. And she's been with us since, how long have you been here, Lydia? 7 years strong. So, there's just so many incredible people doing incredible work. And so those are some of our most immediate projects. It's the Bergdorf launch, which is super new, which we're very excited about, the fall winter collection. We're launching with Bloomingdale's in June, which we're really excited about. Nordstrom's just picked this up. And really just producing orders and working on the new collection. And also, we're going to relaunch our local store that we have in Ghana that we created in this beautiful store called the Kapinski. But because of the pandemic, we couldn't properly launch it. So that's another new project that we are working on. But really, the biggest thing is constantly figuring out new materials that we can work with, new techniques, exploring new ways of doing things. So some of it is kente. I don't know if I can find, is there kente here? So we use a lot of kente. And if you're familiar with West African culture, kente is a very beautiful West African fabric. It looks like this. We open it. It looks like this. So we used a lot of antique kente, and kente, it looks a bit like patchwork, but it's not. But it's not patchwork. Okay. It looks a bit like patchwork, but it's not patchwork. It's actually woven. It's said to be woven like by a spider. So it has these really incredible weaves. This is actually a vintage kente. So it's kind of like silk. And each strip, it's woven in 6-inch strips. Each color in each strip represents something. And so for me, it was really beautiful to work with kente this season because it represents, one, some of our traditional fabrics, and two, some of our local fabrics that we use. And I think it's important to honor those traditions and those local fabrics and talk about the things that we stand for, especially considering how the world is going. I think honoring these traditions is really important so people can understand what we stand for and our legacy, and ask yourself questions like, what are we doing for future generations? What are we doing to preserve, ourselves, sustainability, each other, our children, and really designing with the future in mind and thinking how we can create a world where not only we thrive, but someone like, for example, Lydia, who's sitting over there, her child and her child's child is also thriving. So those are some of our newest projects. And I don't know if you want to hear more, but if you do, I'll continue the video. If not, thank you. So a few weeks ago, we presented our newest collection for fall 2021. We actually don't usually present fall 20 collections. We only do them sometimes. And we only present collections on a needed basis because we believe in the idea of not making products for no reason. We also really believe in the idea of not wasting, so we don't throw anything out. So it's actually interesting because about a year ago, at the beginning of the pandemic, we started doing some really cool patchwork in order to reuse other materials that we used in the past and create some new designs. And we went to Milan to present it with the Camera Nazionale della Moda Italiana, and the pandemic hit and the whole thing got shut down because Milan and Italy was at the kind of ground zero of the coronavirus a year ago. And then we all went on lockdown. And in September of 2021, I'm sorry, yes, I don't know what year we're in, 2020, we presented, instead of a collection, we chose to present a project called Fashion Our Future. And that was because we were really moved by what happened in the summer of 2020, being in lockdown, being in New York, watching the uprisings happen, watching the death of George Floyd. It was a difficult year altogether for people of color, for people in the AAPI community, and just for people in general. And we came together with a lot of our friends in the fashion community with this project that essentially was tied to using our voice to getting people involved and encouraging them to vote. And we called that Fashion Our Future. So that was the collection we launched in September. And honestly, it was just a product that we made and that we highlighted with brands like Virgil Abloh's Off-White. He collaborated with us, Tanya Taylor, and various brands to get people to participate, to wear products, to share, and to talk about the importance of voting and voter registration. And then with that, a few months later, so recently, I felt really inspired. Throughout the entire year, we've been weaving, we've been dyeing. It's not easy to make clothes in a pandemic, especially the type of clothes that we're making. There's a lot of borders that are closed. There's a lot of people that are making a lot of sacrifices. You have stores that cancel orders and that were canceling orders, which affect people. And I think a lot of what we're trying to do is show the humanity in the work that's being done. And, when you make an order and you cancel an order, there's a lot of people that made a lot of sacrifices and that may have kept working throughout the pandemic because they had no choice, and that affects them in a big way. And so what we did is we started making face masks, and we pivoted in order to make sure we didn't fire anybody and that we didn't furlough anybody, and we kept the factory working, except for the 2 weeks of lockdown in Ghana, but also so that way we could also donate masks to people who needed them, because there was a huge shortage of masks at the beginning of the pandemic last year. And then over time, we accumulated and amassed all these beautiful wovens and beautiful textiles that we had been making throughout the year. And so we decided that it was really critical to tell our story. And the story we wanted to tell is a story that we called legacy. When I think about legacy, I also think about, what are we doing? What's the work that how am I contributing? How are our customers contributing? How is our community contributing? How are our workers contributing? how are the artisans contributing? How's our staff contributing? And I think that we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to future generations to think about that. And so that's what the newest collection looked like. It looked like legacy. It looked like, one, looking at our past 7 years and taking materials we've used, making sure that we were taking no waste and patchworking, using upcycled fabrics, using recycled cotton fabrics, but also the organic cottons that we have been weaving in Burkina Faso throughout the year, throughout the pandemic, that literally to get those fabrics, our community had to weave them and then get them on a bus from the village to from Wanga to the north of Ghana, and then we have to call friends over in the north of Ghana, in Tamale, to pick them up, to switch the buses, to put them on another bus in Accra, to get them into Accra to our factory to do the cut and sew, just to then eventually get them cut and sewn and flown to the United States to be able to offer them to all of you. So it's really a huge commitment, and so we wanted to honor that commitment. And what we decided to do was to show in our factory. And why show in our factory? Because this is the heartbeat. This is where it happens within the artisan community and within the factory. And like I was saying earlier, a lot of people have been committed to us for 7 years or since the beginning. And, they've stayed through thick, they stayed through thin, they stayed when it's good, they stay when it's bad, but they always stay. And their, children know them to be here. They've paid for their kids' schools with this company. They have done a lot of work. And I think that their investment in us is as powerful as our investment in them. And so we wanted to be able to showcase them and make them the VIPs. So what we did is we hosted the fashion show in the factory, which again, I've literally never seen anyone do. I've seen it in ateliers, but not inside the factory with all the grit and all the noise and all the mess that you see inside a factory. And they sat VIP. I think for many of them, they had never sat in a fashion show before. They took the front row. And at the same time, they interacted with the models. And I think it's also important because a lot of times with artisanal work, people do the work and then the work gets shipped to another country and they don't necessarily see all the various steps of where their work goes. And in this case, they were able to really see it. They were able to see, the models interacting with the clothes, and then the models were able to see how hard they worked. And in fact, we even had these amazing children. One of our tailors, Cynthia, had her kids here. And as she was watching the models walk, they were walking like this in the corner. And we were like, you need to be in the show. And so when you watch the show, you see them at the end of the show walking with power and with grace. And who knows, maybe the next one is the next supermodel, and maybe they're not. But either way, I believe that day they thought their mom was a superstar, and that's good enough for us. But thank you for taking the time to listen to my long rant about some of the work we're doing. I could talk about it for hours, but I'm sure you have other things to do. So I love all of you for listening, though, because that means a lot. And like I said, when we started 7 years ago, I would go sometimes to meetings with people and try to tell them even just 2 seconds of information, and they would immediately say things like, it's too ethnic, even when it was maybe just all black or all yellow, and there was nothing to even say that about. They just were not listening, and they didn't have the time and the space to create space for us. So to be in a world right now where I feel like, one, the customer's asking for more stories, more narrative, where there's more space for more people, more diversity, more inclusion, more equity. It's really powerful. And to know that, people actually care, that you care, that you took the time to record us, that you took the time to listen to us, that you took the time out of your schedule to honor us, and to be patient with us as we try to continue to do the work that we're doing in Ghana, within Africa, within the United States, and within marginalized communities. Means a huge amount for us, and it gives us the encouragement we need when it gets difficult to remember that there are people listening and that people care and that are people who want to take the journey with us. So thank you for that, and thank you for your love and your consciousness.